The sky above the Arabian Gulf glowed in a soft shade of orange as Flight 417 lifted off from Doha International Airport, heading toward London. The air inside the cabin buzzed with the usual chatter. Tired businessmen checking emails, families settling in for a long flight, and children peeking through the windows as the city lights faded below. In the cockpit sat Captain Ray Carter, a veteran pilot with over 25 years of experience, and his co-pilot, First Officer Malik, a calm, precise man in his early 40s. Behind them in the observer seat was Aidan Clark, a 20-year-old aviation student on a training program, a quiet kid who had dreamt of flying since he was 10. The takeoff was smooth, the climb steady. Everything felt normal, until it didn't. 2 hours into the flight, as the plane cruised at 35,000 feet, a faint alarm began to beep. Malik frowned, scanning the screens. "Ray, check the hydraulic pressure," he said, his voice tight. The warning light blinked red. Seconds later, another alarm blared. "Engine 2 failure." The aircraft shuddered. Passengers gasped as turbulence hit, trays rattling, drinks spilling. In the cockpit, Ray's voice was firm. "All right, stay calm. Shutting down engine 2. But before he could act, the left engine burst into sparks. The smell of burning oil filled the air. "Mayday, mayday, this is Flight 417, we've lost an engine." Ray's voice cut out as the cockpit shook violently. Aidan gripped his seat, heart pounding. The plane started descending faster than expected. "Pull it up," Malik shouted, his hands flying over the controls. But the gauges flickered. And then, horrifyingly, the captain slumped forward, clutching his chest. "Captain!" "Ray!" Malik yelled, shaking him. No response. The radio crackled. The autopilot disengaged. In the chaos, Aidan froze, a student, not a pilot, staring at blinking lights and warning sounds. But one thing was clear: someone had to take control. He reached forward, trembling, remembering his simulator sessions. The yoke felt heavier than it ever had before. Malik turned to him, desperate. "Aidan, do you know how to fly this thing?" Aidan swallowed hard. "Not all of it, but I can try." And with that, the life of 280 passengers suddenly depended on a student pilot who'd never flown a real jet in his life. The cockpit was chaos. Warning lights blinked like red fireflies. Alarms wailed in an endless loop, and the jet lurched as if fighting against invisible waves in the sky. Aidan's hands trembled on the controls, but he gritted his teeth, trying to steady his breathing. Malik, pale and sweating, grabbed the radio. "Mayday, mayday. Captain is down. Requesting immediate assistance. Flight 417, engine failure, loss of control." Static hissed through the headset. The air traffic controller's voice finally came in. Calm, distant, professional. "Flight 417, this is Doha Control. Copy, mayday. Maintain altitude if possible. Who is currently in command?" Malik's voice cracked. "Student pilot assisting." "I repeat, student pilot assisting." There was silence for a moment. Then, "Roger that. Remain calm." "We'll guide you." Aidan's heart hammered. "I've flown Cessnas and small trainers," he muttered, more to himself than anyone. "But not this. Not a 200-ton jet." Malik nodded, trying to stay conscious. "Then think of it like that. Keep her level. Focus." The plane pitched again, dipping slightly to the left. Aidan gripped the yoke and pulled gently, his body straining with the effort. The engines roared unevenly, but the aircraft steadied, its nose slowly rising back toward the horizon. Okay, he whispered. "We're not falling." Behind the cockpit door, passengers were screaming, oxygen masks dangling. The flight attendants fought to calm them. "Please stay seated. Keep your seatbelts fastened." Their own hands shaking. No one knew that the man flying the jet wasn't even a licensed pilot. Doha Control's voice came through again, guiding Aidan step by step. "Reduce throttle on engine 1 by 5%. Keep your altitude at 31,000 feet. You're doing great, Flight 417. He followed, muscle memory kicking in from years of simulator hours. The trembling in his hands began to ease. For a brief moment, Aidan actually believed he could do this. Then the radar screen flashed again. Hydraulic pressure failure. Malik's head slumped against the window, his voice barely audible. "Manual controls only. You'll have to land manually." Aidan's stomach dropped. Manual in a commercial jet? Thousands of feet above the ocean? His throat went dry. The controller's voice came again, firmer now. "Flight 417, you need to divert immediately to Kuwait International. You're too far from Doha, do you copy?" Aiden exhaled shakily. Copy that. He looked out the cockpit window. The night sky stretched endlessly ahead, scattered with stars, and somewhere out there was a runway he'd never seen, waiting for a landing he'd never practiced. He glanced once more at the unconscious captain, then at Malik, whose eyes were half open, whispering weakly, "You've got this. Just trust the plane." Aiden nodded, tightening his grip on the yoke. "All right," he whispered, more to himself than anyone. "Let's bring them home." The student pilot straightened his back, eyes fixed on the horizon as 280 souls held their breath in the dark sky. The jet groaned as it cut through the night sky, its single engine straining to keep altitude. The cabin lights flickered. Every vibration, every beep felt like a countdown to disaster. Aiden sat rigid in the pilot seat, eyes darting between the instrument panel and the stars beyond the windshield. "Flight 417. You're off course by 3 degrees north," came the air traffic controller's calm voice through his headset. "Correct immediately." Aiden's knuckles whitened around the yoke. "Copy that," he said, adjusting the controls carefully. His forehead dripped with sweat, though the cockpit felt freezing cold. Malik stirred, his voice faint. "Flaps. Remember the flaps. Don't deploy them too early." Aiden nodded, though his throat felt tight. He remembered the theory, but theory couldn't match the terror of actually being responsible for hundreds of lives. One wrong move and the aircraft could stall or break apart in mid-air. Behind the cockpit, panic was spreading. A child cried. A mother whispered prayers. Some passengers tried calling loved ones, though there was no signal this high up. A flight attendant, trembling but composed, knocked on the cockpit door. "Sir, what's happening?" Aiden didn't turn around. "We're diverting to Kuwait. Tell everyone to stay calm and fasten their belts." His voice was steady, too steady, masking the storm inside him. The controller guided him through a checklist. "You're descending now. Begin slow reduction, 2,000 feet per minute. Maintain heading 287, you'll see the coastline in 10 minutes. Aiden followed every word, his breathing synchronized with the voice in his ear. Slowly, the dark blue of the sky began to fade into the faint orange glow of city lights ahead. Kuwait. He could see it, but fate wasn't done testing him. Without warning, the aircraft jolted hard to the left. Another system alert, fuel imbalance detected. The damaged hydraulic line was causing uneven fuel flow. The left wing dipped dangerously low. The plane started spiraling. Come on, come on!" Aiden shouted, gripping the yoke with all his strength. The alarm screamed, lights flashing red across the panel. Malik groaned, forcing his eyes open. "Counter it! Rudder right, slowly." Aiden slammed the right rudder pedal, fighting the drag. The plane leveled, barely. The passengers screamed as overhead bins flew open, spilling bags into the aisles. He could feel his heartbeat in his ears. Doha control came back. "Flight 417, we lost your altitude reading." "Respond." Aiden's voice cracked. "This is Flight 417. Under control for now. Beginning final approach, I think." "You're doing good, son," the controller replied softly. "You're saving lives tonight." The glowing runway lights of Kuwait International finally appeared on the horizon. A thin, golden line in the darkness. Aiden's breathing steadied. His trembling hands gripped the yoke tighter. He wasn't just flying anymore, he was surviving. And as the city grew closer, one thought repeated in his head like a prayer. Just get them on the ground. Alive. The runway lights grew larger, brighter, a golden path cutting through the blackness of the desert night. The plane trembled as it descended through patches of turbulent air, the sound of wind roaring against the fuselage. Aiden's eyes locked on those lights. They were no longer just a runway. They were hope itself. "Flight 417, you are cleared for emergency landing runway 26, the air traffic controller said. Emergency crews are on standby. Aiden barely heard him. His mind raced through the checklist he'd memorized years ago in training simulators. Landing gear, flaps, throttle control, descent angle. But this wasn't a simulation. There were real people behind him. Real screams. "Real lives, Malik," he said quietly. "Talk me through this." Malik, barely conscious, nodded weakly. "Flaps, 20 degrees. Keep your descent under 1,000 feet per minute." Aiden adjusted the lever. The plane's nose dipped slightly, the descent smoothing out. He could feel the aircraft fighting back, heavy, wounded, tired. The control stick vibrated under his palms, but he held steady. Below, the runway shimmered like a ribbon of gold. Fire trucks lined its edges, their flashing lights painting the asphalt in red and blue. Speed, 200 knots, Malik murmured. Too fast. Aiden eased the throttle, feeling the engines respond sluggishly. Come on, girl. Don't give up on me now. The aircraft dropped lower. The landing gear deployed with a metallic groan. Passengers held each other's hands, tears streaming down faces, silent prayers filling the cabin. One woman whispered, "Please, God, just let us live. Flight 417, you're coming in too steep," the controller warned. Aiden gritted his teeth, pulling back slightly. The plane leveled out, just in time. The runway rushed up to meet them. A massive thud echoed as the wheels touched down. The jet bounced once, then slammed down again, tires screeching. The fuselage rattled violently as sparks flew from the failing left engine. Aiden pushed the reverse thrust controls with all his strength. Smoke filled the air. The plane screeched down the runway, slowing, until finally it stopped. Silence. Then one by one, the passengers began to clap, softly at first, then louder, until the entire cabin erupted in cheers and tears. Aiden sat frozen, staring at the runway lights through the windshield. His hands were still trembling, his shirt drenched in sweat. Malik smiled faintly from the co-pilot seat. "You did it, kid. You actually did it." Outside, emergency crews surrounded the plane, extinguishing the smoking engine. Aiden took one final breath, unbuckled, and looked at the unconscious captain, alive but weak. Then he turned to Malik, voice barely above a whisper. "We're safe." When the passengers disembarked, several stopped to thank him, not knowing he was just a student. The airline later called it a miracle of composure and courage. But for Aiden, it wasn't about glory. It was about something deeper, a moment where fear met purpose and courage took over instinct. That night, 280 people got a second chance at life. And Aiden Clark learned that the true spirit of a pilot isn't about flight hours or ranks. It's about heart and the will to never give up.